listening to Season 4, Episode 8 of Vixen, a Black beauty and pop culture podcast. If you enjoy what you hear today, please leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts. Today's episode is a roundup episode focusing on Black women in Blaxploitation films. Now, let's start the show. Hey y'all, welcome back to a brand new episode of Vixen. Before we get started on this week's episode, I just want to say thank you so much for all the love that you guys showed me on the Phyllis Hyman episode and the Genevieve Najee episode from last week. Y'all truly showed out. Y'all are the best. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that y'all enjoyed both of those episodes. Those episodes were really, really important to me. Y'all know I have a soft spot for Miss Phyllis Hyman. I love her, so it was important that I, give her flowers on this podcast. For Genevieve, she was not someone that I was very familiar with prior to doing the episode, but it was really, really fun to just learn about her life, her career, and all of the great work that she does and be able to bring that to my audience. And y'all know it's very important to me that we talk about women from all parts of the Black diaspora, so it was really important for me to talk about Genevieve because she's such a fucking icon. Like, excuse my language, but she's such an icon, a Nollywood icon. So that was very important. Thank you guys for the love so much. I did not know I had so many Nigerian and Nigerian American listeners. Shout out to y'all. I'm glad that I was able to cover someone who's truly a pillar in your culture and in your community. And I was happy that I got to bring someone like Genevieve to the rest of my audience who may not be familiar with Nollywood actresses or Nollywood as a whole. So glad I got to do that. I saw a lot of people didn't know who Phyllis Hyman was or knew who she was, but didn't know her story. And, they got a lot out of that episode. So I'm just really grateful that you guys enjoyed those. And like I always say, I'm more than happy to continue to do these kinds of episodes for y'all and just, continue this podcast. It's really a blessing to me. It's therapeutic for me. And I'm just happy y'all love it. So again, before I get mushy like I always do, thank you so much. Now let's get into this week's episode. Okay, so for my older listeners and newer ones, I guess, some of you guys may have not heard this episode if you found me recently, but I did do an episode, I believe it was season 2, on Blaxploitation pioneer and iconic actress Pam Grier, aka Miss Foxy Brown. If you haven't heard that episode, I highly suggest you go back and listen to it. It was a lot of fun to write. Her memoir is really, really good. So I loved that episode and I wanted to talk more about Blaxploitation films and highlight a few of the lesser known blacktresses from that era. So today we're going to get into 2 of those actresses, and they are Brenda Sykes and Vonetta McGee. If you guys like this episode and you want it to become a recurring series, please let me know. I love this era and could talk about it all damn day. So if y'all like this, please let me know. I can definitely do a series, and let's get started. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. So I'm not going to go too deep on the history of Blaxploitation films because I believe I did that a lot in the Pam Grier episode, but the movies took off in the early 1970s, and these films starred all Black casts typically. They were aimed at urban African Americans. I think early on, most of them were done by Black filmmakers, but as the genre started to get more and more popular, a lot of them were made by white filmmakers instead. They started to get like bigger film studios and things like that. So it did kind of become a white man's game as far as, the behind the scenes. Blaxploitation films heavily reflected the experiences that Black people had at the time, although it was very sensationalized, very dramatic, and could be stereotypical. It still was very representative of our life and our everyday experiences, and that is why we loved them. Another reason I think people loved Blaxploitation films so much is because they got to watch Black people get revenge on their oppressors or be the people in charge. Blaxploitation movies made Black people the heroes, the iron fist. We were the people that were, telling it like it is and running the show, basically. People also loved them because the genre kept Black actors working, and it also gave lesser known Black actors a chance to shine. So these movies, although they were huge in our community and also outside of them, I know that a lot of people of other races really enjoyed Blaxploitation films as well. A lot of Black people did not like them at all. Interestingly enough, the term blaxploitation was coined by Junius Griffin, a rep at the NAACP, who combined the words black and exploitation, if you didn't know. He was very critical of the genre, and he wasn't the only person. I think he just felt like, it didn't paint us in a positive light. It played into stereotypes, and it just wasn't doing anything to move our culture and our community forward. So that was a huge criticism of blaxploitation films. Another criticism that they got were the poor representation of Black women and just the way that they depicted their Black female characters, but we'll talk more about that towards the end of the episode. On a more positive note, actresses such as Pam Grier, Vonetta McGee, Tamara Dobson, Brenda Sykes, and others, they were all like the prototype of the beautiful Black woman. And these are the women that people looked up to and were inspired by during the Black is Beautiful era of the 1970s. So the Black is Beautiful movement was started by photography great Kwame Braithwaite, by the way. Let me know if y'all want an episode on the Black is Beautiful movement, but anyway, I'm going to describe it a little bit. So this movement started in about 1964, and it was inspired by the Negritude. I never know how to pronounce this. The Negritude movement of the 1930s, which was basically kind of like an early version of Black is Beautiful, just, Black pride, basically. The purpose of the Black is Beautiful movement was to denounce the stereotypes and negative attitudes towards Black features. And these women that I listed, these blaxploitation actresses, they were just pivotal figures who showcased just how beautiful Black women are. So if you guys are not familiar with that movement, I'm sure you guys have seen, I post some of them on the Vixen Instagram page. A lot of the ads that targeted Black people at the time started to shift along with the movement. Like you used to see a lot of ads in the 60s with Black women wearing like wigs and hair pieces or advertising perm and stuff. But in the 70s, you started to see Afro Sheen, beautiful people wear Afro Sheen, like all of those commercials, all of those magazine ads where the women have big afros and things like that. So that look just started to be more celebrated, and blaxploitation actresses were a big part of that. So now that we got some background, let's get into the first blaxploitation actress we'll be talking about today. Brenda Sykes was born on June 25th, 1949, Cancer Queen, hey, in Shreveport, Louisiana. Around the time Brenda was 12 years old, her family relocated to LA, where they remained until Brenda graduated from Dorsey High School in 1967. A lot of my friends went to Dorsey, so shout out to Dorsey. Shortly after graduation, Brenda scored a position as a teaching assistant in Black history at UCLA's High Potential program. In 1969, Brenda appeared on the popular TV show The Dating Game, where she won an all-expenses-paid trip to New Zealand and caught the attention of casting agents. So, I mean, on the show, like, she really, no shade, love Brenda, but she really didn't do anything, but she caught the eye of these casting agents really just from being fine, like just being a beautiful woman. And I will make sure I post all the pictures I can of her on Instagram. She is gorgeous. I've posted her before. I'm sure you guys have seen her there if you haven't seen her other places. But yeah, she was just beautiful, and casting agents were like, who is that girl? So after appearing on The Dating Game, that is when Brenda got her first big break. So a little bit about The Dating Game, just for reference. It was literally what it sounds like, a dating show. For my true crime people, this is the show that Rodney, I believe his last name is Akala. This is the show that Rodney Akala appeared on. Rodney Akala is the dating game killer. So he was basically a serial killer throughout California. I believe he stayed in California. Yeah. He was a serial killer who appeared on The Dating Game. And I think his segments of the show were airing as he was on his killing spree. So that is how he got the name, The Dating Game Killer. So very scary stuff. I always say, like, the 70s were fucking terrifying. There's no way I just wouldn't have made it through. The way I would have stayed locked indoors the entire 70s, I don't understand. I really, really applaud people who were young at that time and are still here with us, because the 70s were insane, especially with like serial killers and stuff. But anyway, let me get back to the story. So here's how the show would go. 3 guys or 3 girls would be hidden from a woman or man so that they couldn't see their faces, and then the person would ask them questions, and then at the end she would choose one that she wanted to go on a date with. The following year, Brenda was handpicked by director William Wyler to be in The Liberation of L.B. Jones, which also starred Miss Lola Falana. I did a full episode on her in season 1, so go listen to that if you want to know more about her. Love her. But yeah, so they starred in The Liberation of L.B. Jones together. That same year, Brenda got roles in the films Getting Straight and The Baby Maker. In 1971, Brenda met actor Jim Brown, who was completely smitten with her. Like, he had a huge crush on her. So after the two met, Jim urged Robert Hartford Davis, the director of the upcoming blaxploitation film Black Gun, to cast Brenda as his girlfriend in the movie. Brenda got the gig and played opposite Jim's character Gunn as his girlfriend Judith. So this movie is really, really iconic in the blaxploitation genre because it's kind of like a pre-blaxploitation film before the genre really took off. So it came out like when blaxploitation was in its early stages, and it kind of set the tone and set the scene for the movies that came after it. It was a movie with a basically all international crew. It was produced by Columbia, a major studio, unlike a lot of other blaxploitation films. So starring in this movie really put Brenda on the map, and she started to get gigs all over the place. That year, she was casted in the movies Pretty Maids All in a Row, Skin Game, and Honky. So for people who aren't that familiar with blaxploitation films, a big theme of them is calling white people slurs. So just in case y'all go and watch some, if you've never seen them, you're going to hear honky, you're going to hear cracker, you're going to hear the N-word too. You're going to hear a lot of words like that. So just prepping y'all. The following year, Brenda appeared on the very first season of the crime show, The Streets of San Francisco. She was later casted as Jennifer McKenzie on the sitcom Ozzy's Girls, which aired from 1973 to 1974. After appearing on these shows, she had her big blaxploitation run. So this is when she was starring heavily in movies in the genre back to back. So over the years, she did Black Gun, of course, Cleopatra Jones, Mandingo, and Drum. In 1976, Brenda played Summer Johnson on the CBS series Executive Suite, and had a guest role on Good Times as Mandy, one of JJ's girlfriends, in 1978. Also in 1978, Brenda married musician Gil Scott-Heron after dating for a year. Their wedding was very, very small and intimate. I believe Brenda planned the entire thing, and I don't know if the public knew about it until after they were married. The couple welcomed a daughter, Gia, in 1980. They were married for almost 10 years, later divorcing in 1987. Brenda went on to marry lawyer Paul Claude Hudson in 1995, who she is still happily married to today. So that's pretty much Brenda's story. Brenda had a huge blaxploitation run. I think people recognize her face more than anything. But she never did interviews for some reason. I think she just did not care. I've heard from just reading other things about her, just secondhand accounts. She was very cool, very calm, very collective, very much like what you would think a 70s chick is like, just very chill, She never did many interviews, so there's not much known about her personal life other than her marriages and her daughter, but that's pretty much it. She's still married today, has a good life, has her daughter, all that good stuff. There was a little bit of drama here though. So after Gil's death in 2011, his only son, Rumal Rackley, accused Gia, that's Brenda's daughter, Brenda, and Brenda's mother, Elvira, of stealing over $250,000 from Gil's estate. Now, I don't think Brenda herself was mentioned much in his lawsuit, but he did directly accuse Gia of forging Gil's signature to access his accounts. And he accused Elvira, the grandmother, of illegally using a power of attorney document. I'm assuming he's saying that she obtained a fake document to be power of attorney, but whatever. He said that she had this document made illegally to have power over Gil's accounts. So Rumal sued all three women for the allegedly stolen $250,000 plus another $2 million in damages. So yikes. The craziest accusation of all on this lawsuit is that he says that Gia took their dad's corpse from the hospital and hid it. I don't know what he was trying to say that she did, but she says that he took the body, y'all. I have no idea. It's a lot. In a statement to the New York Daily News in 2012, Elvira Sykes said, "There is no reason for me to take that money. I wouldn't be that dumb. Chase wouldn't be that dumb." She's talking about the bank. And Rumal shouldn't be that dumb, end quote. I have absolutely no opinion on this because it is insane, but I will say I hate how much families fight after someone's death, especially if that person was relatively wealthy or had a lot of assets. It's just very, very sad. So I was hoping, maybe they could get this together. This particular lawsuit was later settled out of court, I believe, in 2019, but Ramal was then named Gil's legal heir and was appointed permanent administrator of his estate. Gia was not happy with this. I believe she tried to get it reversed a few times, and she also has stated that he is not Gil's biological son, and the two daughters that Gil also had are also not his kids. So it looks like these siblings are still beefing, sadly, but hopefully they can figure it out, child, because this is very messy. But yes, that is Brenda Sykes' story. I will make sure I post some beautiful pictures of her. Hopefully we can get some clips posted as well. Hey y'all, so I know we're all excited to come out of this pandemic and get back to our regular lives, but let's be honest, we've been through a lot these last 2 years. You might feel like you need to step back, reassess, process it all, set new goals, or just talk to somebody. I was feeling the exact same way, and I just had my very first session with my new life coach, Tola Maria. I ain't gonna lie, y'all, I was nervous, but Tola made the space very comfortable. I felt safe, and I felt like I could be open and honest. Although she made me comfortable, she did not hold back, y'all. She definitely told me about myself. But it all felt really constructive. I got some good tips. It was definitely eye-opening and very much needed. Having a life coach is something that I think Black women can truly get a lot out of. So I've partnered with Tola Maria, life coach, to offer my listeners 12% off their bulk sessions when they use my code VIXEN. You can use this code on her website, which will be linked down in the show notes. And you can find her on Instagram at @TMariaLifeCoach. That's TMARIA Life Coach. And don't forget to use code VIXEN and let her know that I've sent you. Okay, so let's get into our next Blacktress, Vonetta McGee. Vonetta Lawrence McGee was born on January 14th, 1945 to Lawrence and Alma McGee in San Francisco, California. Vonetta had a bit of a hard childhood, y'all, mainly due to her health. She was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma at only 17 years old. So I think that this just made her want to take life a little bit more seriously, and it seems like she started to just kind of take risk and really believe in herself after this. Once she graduated from San Francisco Polytechnic High School in 1962, Vonetta started taking classes at San Francisco State. Since her childhood, her family had her all geared up to be a lawyer, honey. They were like, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to help people, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And she did become a pre-law major at San Francisco State, but once she started school, she got bitten by the acting bug, y'all. So she got very involved in the amateur theater scene around the city, and she started working closely with Aldridge Players West, which is a very popular Black theater group. I believe they came up in another episode. I don't remember which one, but there's someone else that we've talked about who was also affiliated with this group. But anyway, Vonetta dropped out of school and moved to Rome with a group of American actors who wanted to find work at Rome's film studios. In 1968, Vonetta landed her first role in the spaghetti western film The Great Silence as Pauline Middleton. So I know I spoke about spaghetti westerns a little bit in the Lola Falana episode, but for those of you guys who aren't familiar, I'll go ahead and explain what they are. So spaghetti westerns are basically a genre of films created by Italians in the 1960s, and they all had western themes. Like, it's giving you like Walker Texas Ranger vibes, it's giving you the AMC channel, like all of that kind of stuff. Like the western films and shows were really, really popular at this time. My grandma, to this day, they have her in a chokehold. She loves them. But anyway, like that kind of film was huge, and Italian people were making a lot of these. Lola Falana herself was in a couple of them. I know she was known as Black Venus in Italy. She became fluent in Italian because she was in so many of them. I believe Danielle Luna was in one too, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of Black women were casted in them, and a lot of them found success in the Italian film industry when they weren't getting gigs back in the States. So spaghetti westerns were almost like a prerequisite to the blaxploitation genre. So they hit like right before blaxploitation happened, but just like blaxploitation films, they kind of kept Black people working. If y'all want a film review finale episode on Black spaghetti westerns, let me know. Would love to watch some. I think most of them are in Italian, but let me know. So anyway, I'm thinking that just like this went very well for a lot of other Black actors, it must have gone well for Vonetta too, because she was casted in an Italian comedy called Faustina that same year that she moved to Rome. In 1969, Sidney Poitier asked Vonetta to come back to the States to star in 2 of his films, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and The Lost Man. She later starred in The Kremlin Letter the following year. So this is where Vonetta has her blaxploitation run. After appearing in the Italian film, she went on to star in movies like Blackula, Hammer, Shaft in Africa, Melinda, The Norless Tapes, Detroit 9000, and many, many more. She had a really, really big blaxploitation career, and I would say her, Pam, Brenda, Tamara Dobson are like the most recognizable women in this genre. In 1974, Vonetta started dating actor Max Julien, who she starred with in the 1974 film Thomasine and Bushrod. So this movie, I suggest watching this. I actually really like this one. It's basically, I think it was an answer, like a Black answer to Bonnie and Clyde, and they basically just go on like this Robin Hood spree, this couple. It's really funny. It's a good blaxploitation film. I would say start with that one if you've never seen any. I really like that one. But let me just say here that Vonetta really, really disliked the blaxploitation film stereotype. She disagreed with people who found it exploitive. And I think she took a lot of pride in acting in them, which I feel as she should. She didn't think that it was fair to discount the movies and the roles just because, they represented Black people or even played into stereotypes. So that was her stance on it. What do you guys think about it? I mean, I feel like, not to talk down on him, because I do respect the fact that he keeps a lot of Black actors and actresses working, just the same way people felt about blaxploitation films. But I do feel like the way that he writes Black people sometimes is really, really hurtful and careless. I do not like, I don't want to go too hard, but I will say I don't like how he writes dark-skinned Black men. I don't like how he writes women most of the time. I think that a lot of his writing can be harmful, even though I appreciate him making movies aimed at Black people as well as keeping Black actors employed. But I do think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, especially when you start to gain a big white audience and you're still writing Black people like that. Be mindful of the fact that we're in mixed company right now. That's how I feel. Just be mindful of the fact that we're in mixed company, and that's just not it sometimes. So I get what both Vonetta was saying and what people who critiqued the blaxploitation genre were saying as well. Fred Williamson, who starred opposite Vonetta in the film Hammer, was interviewed by the LA Times in 2010, and here's a quote from that interview. "I was pleased to see her get a role with Clint Eastwood. Not many Black actors had that opportunity to be in a movie where color doesn't matter. Vonetta McGee was like a lot of actors and actresses at the time, like myself, Jim Brown, Richard Roundtree, Billy D. Williams, and Pam Grier, in that we had more talent than we were allowed to show because everything was perceived as a Black project. Once they categorize you, your marketability becomes limited," end quote. So basically what Fred was touching on here is that a lot of blaxploitation actors got just kind of pigeonholed into the genre, and a lot of them were not able to find success outside of the genre, and they were just considered, I don't know what the term would be, but like concept actors, like that typecast, basically. That was all they could do. So a lot of them, once blaxploitation ended its run, they could only get casted in very stereotypical projects. So he was saying, Vonetta was lucky to be able to showcase her talent in other ways, such as Pam Grier and other people did. Here's a condensed quote from an interview with the New York Times in 1979, along with a quote from Vonetta herself. "The blaxploitation term was used like racism, so you don't have to think of the individual elements, just the whole. If you study propaganda, you understand how this works. Although the Times reported that McGee calls herself one of the lucky graduates of the Black film genre, she pointed out that there was a difference between someone like Diana Ross and other potentially marketable Black actresses. She had the luxury of a studio behind her," McGee said. "This is where a lot of us fell short. We all needed a certain amount of protection, but we were on our own." End quote. So this is something that Vonetta continues to stand on throughout the rest of her career. She constantly called out kind of the favoritism between Black actors. As she left the Blaxploitation genre and moved on to more mainstream gigs, she still called out industry racism and things like that. Her career was quite interesting because she, as well as Pam Grier and Brenda a bit, are one of the few Blaxploitation actresses to step out of the genre and find success, as we were saying with the Fred Williamson quote. But Vonetta was pretty booked throughout the 1980s and well into the 90s. And like I said, even though she was very popular, she continued to speak out on racism in the industry, which her peers were a lot of them were just not doing that. And a lot of people say this is why she remained underrated throughout her career, because she continued to speak out, and that maybe if she hadn't, her career would have went further or she would be more recognized. As the mid-1970s came around, Blaxploitation did start to die down, and like I said, Vonetta quickly shifted into other genres. In 1975, she was Clint Eastwood's co-star in the action film The Eiger, not sure how to pronounce that, but yeah. After appearing in that movie, Vonetta took a short break from acting, returning to the screen with a vengeance in the 80s after ending her relationship with Max Julien in 1977. Throughout the 1980s, Vonetta focused mainly on TV and just being on the small screen. Later appeared on the show Starsky and Hutch. She was in the movie Repo Man and much, much more. Around 1985, she appeared in the TV show Cagney and Lacey, playing the wife of a detective. That detective was played by actor Carl Lumbly. The two fell in love on set, got married in 1987, and had a son, Brandon, the following year. Even though the two had a brand new baby and were both booked and busy, Vonetta had just booked a role on the comedy show Bustin' Loose. Carl was getting really, really good reviews in a new production of A Midsummer's Night Dream. The couple got heavily involved in many causes, mainly focusing on the subject of physical health within the Black community. Vonetta had started doing yoga about 15 years earlier, and she walked 4 miles a day, so she was very in tune with her health. Remember, she was diagnosed with lymphoma when she was only 17, so I totally understand why health became a cornerstone in her life. Here's a condensed quote from a 1988 interview Vonetta did with the Chicago Tribune. "We're trying to get out the word on why Blacks succumb to more respiratory diseases than other groups, due primarily to lack of regular medical checkups and smoking. Our goal is to make the minority community aware of our health problems: heart disease, hypertension, cancer, and AIDS. I use yoga as it helps to relieve stress. It helps me stay centered and balanced. We're in a business that is all-consuming. Yoga helps me to see that this business is not the only thing in my life." End quote. And she was absolutely right. It was not the only thing in her life, y'all. Vonetta kept acting sporadically in the 90s, but she kind of unofficially retired in the 2000s and just decided to lead a quiet life with her husband and son in San Francisco. Unfortunately, at only 65 years old, Vonetta passed away from complications from cardiac arrest on July 9th, 2010. That's so sad, because 65 is just way too young. On a brighter note, her husband still acts to this day. I believe her son is doing very well too, and I've been seeing a lot of people bring her up, like just on Twitter and stuff, and just talking about how beautiful she was and how talented she was. So I was really happy to be able to cover both her and Brenda today, because they are big icons. I mean, we see these are two women that I know, if y'all don't know their names or like anything about them, like I know y'all have seen their photos before. I know you've seen stills of them in films, screen grabs of them in films, if you've been on Tumblr, on Twitter, on Instagram. So it's very important to me that we bring their stories to life in today's episode, and I hope y'all enjoyed this. And just about Blaxploitation films in general. Like I said earlier, if you want a series on this, please let me know. Like I said, I love Blaxploitation films and would love to talk more about them. I was thinking of doing a Blaxploitation roundup for the film review finale. Not for this season, maybe next. So just let me know if y'all want to hear that, and I will see y'all next week for an all new episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to Vixen. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a review. If you have a submission, feel free to email VIXENPODCAST@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with an all new episode.